Brexit was about regaining control. It was about the right to self-govern.
Inflation figures for November have just been published. You might want to look away now.
Wall Street here at home plummeting more than 600 points, and the faces in Britain, those who thought there was no way this could happen.
Are you shocked by how much everyone seems to hate Brexit nowadays? Amidst rising tensions and mounting opposition to this decision, it seems that everyone's opinion regarding Brexit has already been soured. But how will this impact the country going forward, and what does it mean for its citizens? In this video, we'll delve into the reasons why everyone hates Brexit and what's next for Britain. We will discuss the statistics of the referendum, the unfulfilled benefits promised by Brexit supporters, and the impact of Boris Johnson's resignation and the recent economic downturn in the UK. We'll also explore the possibility of the UK rejoining the EU and the stance of the major political parties on the issue. Stay tuned with us to have a comprehensive understanding of the current state of Brexit and its impact on the UK. The United Kingdom's tumultuous journey towards Brexit reached its conclusion on the 31st of January 2020, when the country officially parted ways with the European Union after years of political strife and negotiations. However, the process did not end there, as an 11-month transition period was implemented in order to facilitate the creation of a new trade agreement between the UK and EU. During this time, the UK remained a part of the Single Market and Customs Union and was required to adhere to EU regulations. The transition period was designed to provide a buffer for both parties to iron out the details of their future relationship, but it also sparked controversy and debate, with some arguing that it simply prolonged the uncertainty and instability caused by the Brexit vote. In any case, the transition period eventually came to a close on the 31st of December 2020, marking the end of the UK's membership in the EU and the start of a new chapter in the nation's history. After enduring months of intricate and often contentious negotiations, the EU and the UK finally reached a trade agreement on the 24th of December 2020. UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson hailed the agreement, which is worth 660 billion sterling or $885 billion, as a Christmas present for the nation, claiming that it would allow the UK to reclaim control of its own laws while also avoiding tariffs or quotas on trade. However, several months later, Johnson attempted to renegotiate certain aspects of the deal, specifically the trading rules for Northern Ireland. These efforts were swiftly rejected by the EU, which maintained that the agreement was final and could not be altered. The incident served as a reminder of the ongoing challenges and complexities of the UK's post-Brexit relationship with the EU, and the need for both parties to find a way to work together effectively despite their differences. The Brexit referendum took place on June 23, 2016, and the result was that a majority of voters, 51.9%, chose to leave the European Union. However, it's important to note that the referendum was advisory, meaning that the decision to leave the EU had to be approved by the UK Parliament before it could be implemented. Since then, there have been various developments and debates about the terms of the UK's departure from the EU and its future relationship with the bloc. It's also worth noting that public opinion on Brexit has changed over time, with some polls indicating that a majority of the UK population now favors remaining in the EU. According to a recent poll conducted by the British Polling Council, only 43% of respondents believe that the UK's decision to leave the European Union was a good one, with a contrasting 57% stating that it was a mistake. These findings represent a significant deviation from the results of the referendum, which saw nearly 52% of voters opt for Brexit, sending shockwaves around the world. John Curtis, president of the British Polling Council, remarked that Brexit is currently experiencing its lowest level of popularity since the referendum in June of 2016. It's clear that the controversial decision to leave the EU continues to divide the nation, with passionate arguments on both sides of the debate. The signing of the free trade agreement between the UK and the EU is often seen as the true beginning of the economic impact of Brexit. For years, economists have warned that the UK's departure from the EU, the world's largest trading bloc, would likely have negative consequences for the country's economy. It can be challenging to accurately gauge the specific impact of Brexit on the UK's economy due to the coincidence of the country's exit from the EU and the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. However, it is worth noting that after the UK formally left the EU in late January 2020, the country's gross domestic product experienced a decline of 0.4% in the month of February. It's difficult to determine to what extent this dip was influenced by Brexit or other factors, such as the early stages of the pandemic. Regardless, the UK's economic performance in the aftermath of Brexit has been closely scrutinized and remains a topic of ongoing debate and analysis. To analyze the UK's economic performance in the aftermath of Brexit, Investment Monitor analyzed data from the second quarter of 2016, shortly after the EU referendum. According to figures from the Organisation for Economic Cooperation and Development, the UK's GDP grew by 14.3% between 2016 and 2021. However, this growth rate was lower than that of 4 of the EU's largest economies over the same time frame. Germany at 32.2%, Spain at 25.6%, France at 23%, and Italy at 16.3%. By the way, if you're not subscribed to the Biz Studied YouTube channel, you need to subscribe now before the end of the year. We promise the next video will be even better, so please subscribe, and thank you so much for watching the video. Now back to it. The Office for Budget Responsibility, or OBR, a UK-based organization, has stated that the long-term impact of Brexit on the UK economy is expected to be worse than that of the COVID-19 pandemic. The OBR estimates that Brexit will reduce the UK's potential GDP by 4%, while the pandemic is estimated to cause a further 2% reduction. These estimates highlight the significance of economic challenges that the UK has faced in the aftermath of Brexit and the ongoing uncertainty surrounding the country's economic future. Moreover, the implementation of the EU-UK Free Trade Agreement in December 2020 had a significant impact on exports and imports between the two parties. In January 2021, exports from the UK to the EU saw a drop of 45.5%, while imports from the EU to the UK decreased by 32.5%. Industries such as textiles, food, and automotive were particularly hard hit. There are several reasons why trade flows between the UK and EU may have been disrupted following the implementation of the Free Trade Agreement. Some speculate that confusion over new bureaucratic measures and levies may have played a role, as well as the impact of European lockdowns and stockpiling in late 2020. On the other hand, UK exports to non-EU countries saw an increase of 4.6% during the same period, suggesting that the country's economic performance may not have been entirely negative in the aftermath of the Free Trade Agreement. However, it's important to consider that these factors may have been influenced by a range of complex factors, and further analysis is necessary to fully understand the impact of the agreement on the UK's economy. From February 2020 to November 2021, the value of UK exports fell by 0.7%, going from 27.2 billion to 27 billion sterling. This decrease comes at a time when global trade is experiencing a resurgence following the end of the COVID-19 crisis. Meanwhile, data from Eurostat shows that two-way trade between the EU and China reached 625.6 billion euros, or $698.5 billion, between January and November 2021, representing a 17.1% increase from the same period in 2020. US-EU trade also saw an increase of 12.3% over the same time frame. In contrast, two-way trade between the UK and the EU decreased by 3.5% in the months following the implementation of the Free Trade Agreement. This decline suggests that the UK economy may face difficulties in rebounding as quickly as other advanced economies, especially considering that the EU is still the UK's largest trading partner. These trends highlight the challenges and uncertainties that the UK continues to face in the aftermath of Brexit and the ongoing impact of the pandemic on the global economy. Besides, political turmoil within the UK is causing concern for investors, as the Northern Ireland Protocol, which took effect in January 2021, has disrupted trade between Northern Ireland and Great Britain. The protocol allows for goods to be shipped from Northern Ireland to the Republic of Ireland without inspections at the border, but instead requires inspections to take place at Northern Irish ports before the goods enter the mainland UK. This arrangement has led to accusations that a new trade border has been established in the Irish Sea, causing some businesses to stop supplying Northern Irish stores due to the increased bureaucracy. Unionists are opposed to the protocol, arguing that Northern Ireland should be treated the same as the rest of the UK. The UK called for changes to the agreement, but the EU rejected the idea of renegotiating the text and instead offered bespoke proposals to benefit Northern Ireland. As tensions continue to rise over the protocol and its impact on trade and relations within the UK, it remains to be seen how the situation will be resolved and what the long-term consequences will be. On top of that, UK Prime Minister Liz Truss resigned after just 44 days in office, following in the footsteps of her predecessor Boris Johnson, who similarly stepped down after a brief tenure. Truss's resignation comes after she abandoned plans for the tax cuts that had caused financial markets to plummet and exacerbated the country's fiscal crisis. The UK's once proud position as a diplomatic, economic, and global security powerhouse has been undermined by the frequent changes in leadership and the ongoing fallout from the Brexit vote in 2016. Truss is the fourth Prime Minister to resign since David Cameron's departure in the aftermath of the Brexit referendum, and her resignation marks the second change in administration in 2022 alone. According to Sarah Raimondi, an assistant professor of politics and international relations at Northeastern's London campus, the UK is unraveling as a result of a larger global shift away from liberal international and institutionalism towards a multipolarity of regional powers. Inflation in the UK has been on the rise, with the Consumer Prices Index, including owner-occupiers' housing costs, rising by 4.8%, in the 12 months ending December 2021, up from 4.6% in the preceding 12 months. This marks the highest 12-month inflation rate since September 2008 and has been driven in part by increases in housing and transport costs. The global rise in energy prices, supply chain disruptions, and higher shipping costs have impacted countries around the world, and in the UK, these factors have been compounded by the consequences of Brexit. As more evidence emerges demonstrating the negative impact of Brexit on the UK economy, the government is facing increased pressure to acknowledge the issue. Despite criticizing the economic policies of the Conservative government, the main opposition party, Labour, ruled out the possibility of re-entering the EU's single market or customs union if it were to win the next general election, which must be held no later than January 2025. Labour leader Keir Starmer stated that the party would aim to make Brexit work, but economists have suggested that either or both of these measures could help to mitigate the long-term damage to the UK's economic growth prospects. As the UK continues to grapple with the aftermath of Brexit, many people are wondering, will the country ultimately decide to rejoin the European Union? On one hand, there are those who argue that leaving the EU was a mistake, and that rejoining would be a better option for workers and conservatives alike. After all, membership in the EU offers many economic and social benefits, including access to a larger labor market and greater opportunities for trade. But on the other hand, there are also those who believe that Brexit was the right decision for the UK, and that rejoining would be a betrayal of the national will. For some, leaving the EU represents an opportunity to reclaim sovereignty and chart a new course for the country, free from European constraints. As the country continues to navigate the challenges and uncertainties of post-Brexit life, it remains to be seen how the government and other political parties will respond to these pressing issues. That's all for today, folks. In your opinion, how could the UK address the challenges it has faced in the aftermath of Brexit, such as the decrease in trade with the EU and political turmoil? What do you think the future holds for the UK's economy? Share your thoughts with us in the comment section. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and thank you for watching.